that, Vince, I want to ask you the same question. Do you believe that Black Lives Matter is actually doing something good for our nation, or do you believe it's all just a scheme to play into the left wing's narrative?
No, doing nothing good for our nation. Just look at the Ferguson effect. After Ferguson, the under-policing in our country caused the black homicide rate to go up by almost 20%. But this is what the left does. Same thing. They do the same thing with the Women's March. Okay, so they know that their ideas are so ridiculously radical and crazy and insane that no one is on board with them. So they'll try to guilt trip you into this game where they name the movement something called like Black Lives Matter. And so they're basically trying to set you up to say, oh, if you disagree with our totally political partisan leftist movement, then you don't care about black lives, and you're a racist if you disagree with us. Same thing with the Women's March. They call it the Women's March, but they basically create the premise that this is not a political cause. This is not a leftist organization. This is just for women. And if you don't support the Women's March, then you're misogynistic and you don't care about women's rights and all that. Even though it's totally a political cause, this is the game they play. Conservatives and just people in general need to notice this is the game that they play. They'll give these nice names to a lot of different movements, and I'm sure there's more examples. They'll give these nice names to a lot of different movements, when in reality they're just like totally partisan far left movements. But they'll try to paint it as, oh, it's like you're a bad person if you disagree with us, like you're racist or you're sexist, because how could you be against black rights or women's rights, even though in reality it's just far left. Yeah, they
set it up so directly. They play such a dang good game that you just have to wonder how they all do it so well together. Because in one month you'll have, oh, March for Our Lives, which is all these students marching because they want guns out of the schools because we're all getting killed.
It's another example,
a completely different issue. Or you have the Women's March where you say, well, I'm not a big fan of the Women's March. They aren't actually marching for women's issues. You're a misogynist. You don't stand for women. And then you have Black Lives Matter, and the list goes on and on. But they play such a good word game that you have to wonder how they got so dang good at it. How did they get all these years of getting it all together in which they could target all these, I guess we can say, minority groups? So they have the youth market cornered. They have the women's market cornered. They had the black market cornered. Although after all this, I think a lot more people are going to start to wake up from their brainwashing and actually start to look at things rather than CNN and what all of them are going to tell you about Black Lives Matter and that we're anti-fascist and that we're marching for your lives or that we care about women, because they don't care about any of those things. All they care about is that you show up to November, you vote, and then you sit right back down on your couch, not work, and watch your MSNBC until you fall asleep so they can get into your brain and speak those messages right to you. Do you believe that saying all lives matter in response to Black Lives Matter is a negative thing? And do you believe the movement of all lives matter is negative?
It would be a negative thing if Black Lives Matter was actually being like honest about the issue and actually fighting for all black lives. But you have to say all lives matter because Black Lives Matter is, the movement specifically, is just so selective. Okay, like I have said all lives matter in response to Black Lives Matter when it regards black people dying, like David Dorn, Patrick Underwood. These are black people that were killed as a result of Black Lives Matter riots. And obviously you have no attention from the media, no attention from Black Lives Matter. If Black Lives Matter was really giving the same attention to every time a black life was ended, then I would say, yeah, just saying all lives matter, you're just kind of trying to like be provocative or whatever. But when Black Lives Matter is being so freaking selective, 50 black people killed in Chicago, they don't care, but one black person murdered by a cop and suddenly they care. You have to say all lives matter because you have to point out you guys are being so freaking selective with all of this. You're not actually saying Black Lives Matter. You're simply saying Black Lives Matter only when they're killed by police, but we don't care about black lives when they die here, there. No, but this tiny little portion of blacks are killed by police. That's what matters. And now we have to say Black Lives Matter. So when that is the movement you're fighting against, you absolutely have to say all lives matter because all lives do matter.
That is very true, Vince. Thank you so much for that. That was very energizing, very good statement right there, Gina. We're going to go to you about this. And you're the one that really got me to ask that question because I don't see many other people asking it. So I think it's very, at least on the right, I don't see many people asking about it. But do you believe, and go ahead, but do you believe that all lives matter is going to be or saying all lives matter in response to somebody saying Black Lives Matter is a negative thing? And do you believe the movement of all lives matter is negative?
I don't think it's completely, I know some people say it just to get a rile out of somebody. They're like, oh, all lives matter just to get a reaction. I know I personally say it, and a lot of conservatives say it because we truly believe all lives matter. And we've been talking about these issues in, Democrat-run cities. We've been talking about crime rates in, Chicago and stuff like that. We talk about this all year long, and this suddenly becomes a big deal when everybody gets together on this one thing. Like Vince said, when a black man gets killed by a white cop, that's only when they come out. Every 4 years, this suddenly happens. And I say it because I know half of my friends that were posting about Black Lives Matter, they have not posted one single post about David Dorn, not one single post about Patrick Underwood. And I see the selective choosing of whose life matters. And it's like, I don't want that for America. I don't want us to politicize and make a big media spiel over one life. I want us to be saddened by all crime and try to fix it.
I believe the media has shaken things up in terms of this entire case. That we're going to go to you. Do you believe that the media response and media just manipulation of this entire George Floyd case, do you believe it's done anything to further the cause of ending racism?
No, it's actually just basically incited what we have now, which is a race, a figurative and sometimes physical race war in our country. So the media has definitely not made the issue of racism any better. In fact, I think they've brought racism back. They've made America a significantly more racist country as a result of this, mainly from the left, right? But yeah, and just generally speaking, this whole George Floyd case was terrible. But in its own way, it is a media creation, because the same thing happened to a white man named Tony Timpa in, was this 2019 or 2016? I forget. But the same thing happened to him, and the media, there was no media reporting. My teacher was basically telling me, Vince, one of my teachers was like, Vince, you need to understand the anger that the Black community is feeling in America because of stuff like this. And I was like, no, well, that anger is really something that's not actually founded. It's more created by the media, because while this is one case, you know, the black on black murder rate significantly higher. And the same thing happened to a white man named Tony Timpa in, you know, years past.
2018,
so
yeah.
It really is all this really was a creation of the media and media coverage, because had the media not basically singled in on this, but reality and instead just covered police brutality sort of objectively as like, oh, here's police brutality towards white people, Black people, Asian people, Latino people, and covered the epidemic of Black on Black violence, just in general civilian violence, the same way they covered police brutality, we really wouldn't have the situation we have today. The reason why is because for years, the media has singled in all the killings in America. They singled in on this tiny portion of the killings, which is white cops killing Black people. Very tiny portions of all the people get killed in America. They've singled in on this for years, and they've created the situation. They've created all the race war, the cultural revolution is all made by the media.
I want to go to you first about this one. They're tearing down Confederate statues. What do you have to say about all that? I mean, we're just erasing history.
Yes, I think if a community wants to get rid of a statue, they should be able to, but they should do so through referendum, right? You can have a motion on your local election of, do you want to keep the statue up? Do you not? But to tear, and like that's the community's decision. Absolutely 100%. But to tear down the statue in that fashion, that's not civilization. You know, that's how primates operate. That's how society degrades, because it's like, you know, it's one thing, okay, if you want to take down a statue, go ahead. But in a democratic society, we're supposed to do that democratically. We don't just show up as a mob and just deface it and then take it down, you know? And honestly, I don't think this is about Confederate statues at all, because they've defaced all sorts of statues. They've defaced the freaking Gandhi statue and like abolitionist statues, for God's sakes. I don't even think they know what they're doing. I don't even think they know whose statue they're tearing down. They're just trying to deface every single monument. I mean, if it was really about Confederate statues, then they would only be going after Confederate statues, but they're going after the World War II monument and all this other stuff. I think they just want to create destruction. Like, I don't even think they know that they're taking down Confederate statues. But again, I'll say that if you want to take down a statue as a community, then have a vote and have a civilized way to do it. You don't show up as a mob and just destroy stuff, right? That's how society and that's how law and order just totally, you know, degrades.
Yeah. Just like with the riots, it's not really about making your message clear or standing up for Black lives. It's just about getting something out of it, or saying, you know, I'm oppressed, but you're just lazy. What do you think about the media ushering up and raising George Floyd to be someone way up there on a pedestal?
Yeah, this is just so obviously selective and disingenuous, because where is the mass funeral and where's all the TV broadcasting about David Dorn or Patrick Underwood or all these other Black people who were killed in the riots? Or where is the mass service or mass funeral and all the media coverage of it for the 50 people who were shot in Chicago on Memorial Day weekend alone, right? It's so selective, and it really just reflects what I've been saying about Black Lives Matter, is that they just selectively hone in on white cops killing Black people, which is a very small percentage of all the deaths in America, especially deaths towards Black people. They just singled that out. and they try to upload that to spread a narrative. Not that, oh, we need to fight to make sure innocent people don't die, which is a righteous cause. Instead, they're just trying to spread the narrative. They're trying to convince voters and convince the country that they're fundamentally racist, that the country's systemically racist, and that somehow we as a country need to apologize for that all by voting for the Democrats and voting for the left-wing candidates. That's what's going on here. We should obviously honor, George Floyd's family, and we should feel bad about what happened and try to seek justice, but it's to pretend to suddenly like uplift him as a saint is just so disingenuous. And where is this for all the other Black people who are killed for in other situations and other reasons? It's so selective, and it's really just trying to push a dangerous narrative that America is systemically racist when it's not. And that's the real reason they're doing this. It's
a very dangerous narrative they're pushing, kind of sudden. But do you believe that Antifa invading themselves into Black Lives Matter made the movement more corrupt, or do you believe even without Antifa, the movement was detrimental?
Yeah, so I mean, it was definitely a negative movement before. There's a reason why Antifa latched onto it. Okay, they don't just latch on to anything. There's a reason why Antifa found sort of a window to latch on to Black Lives Matter. I'm not necessarily saying that everyone in Black Lives Matter supports Antifa, because that's not true. But Jesus Christ. But you can definitely see that there's a reason why Antifa sort of found their way into Black Lives Matter, because Black Lives Matter was saying rhetoric like all cops are bastards, America is systemically racist, America is systemically fascist. Can we point out real quick, if Black Lives Matter collectively as a movement was really against Antifa, then why aren't they pushing them out? Like I was on a live like when this was first starting, and someone brought up a great point, and I was like, this is 100% true. If Black Lives Matter is so opposed to Antifa, then why aren't they? And this is true. Some of them have done it, but very rarely. Yeah. In most cases, they just let the rioting happen. Why aren't they standing in front of those stores saying, "Don't touch this"? Why aren't they standing in front of the cops saying, "Don't hurt them," because we're a peaceful movement? If it was really that's what this was really about, then why isn't Black Lives Matter across America coming out against Antifa? In a lot of cases, they're just standing by, or in some cases, even participating.